right, good evening, everyone, and welcome. The study session of January 25th, 2022 is called to order. Donna, will you do a roll call, please?
Yes, I will. Councilmember Sherman.
Here.
Councilmember Gutierrez. I see you raising your hand. There you are. Councilmember Bode.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Schmidt.
Here.
Mayor Inesco.
Here.
Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
And Councilmember McDowell.
Present.
All are accounted for, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Let's start with our study agenda. Tonight, we're going to discuss downtown street trees. Public Works Director Jay Harris has information for us.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. Jay Harris, your Public Works Director. Downtown street trees. I'll show you a PowerPoint in just a moment. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. I started with the city about a year and a half ago, and one of the common reoccurring themes is grinding sidewalks downtown. We've removed some panels. The tree grates are getting pushed up. There's about 38 trees that have a problem. They were installed some time ago. And anyways, what I want to do is talk to you about the potential of replacing the trees or accomplishing something else because the trees are getting larger and larger. Anyways, I'm going to start the PowerPoint. I'm going to share my screen here. Can everybody see that all right? Okay, yes. So on the cover side, I did this for a reason. So I'm in front of, I don't know what street tree it is on the map, but I'm right by the clock tower there. And so you can see, I was able to get a picture of the same tree in 2013. It's looking at two different angles, but you can see in a matter of 9 years, that tree has grown from, a 5-inch caliper at the base to, significant 12-inch, right? You could see the sidewalk in 2013. Someone had already gone in maybe and done a little bit of grinding and a tad bit of repair right there. But you could see that the tree is pushing up the curb and gutter, so it's affecting the street. You can see where we've ground, this is the picture on the right, ground the sidewalk the best we could, to try to get it to conform for now. But there's a problem at 38 different locations, and they all vary. This is maybe one of the worst ones, right? So next slide. So 1995, we planted these Chancellor pears, very common in the 90s, this sort of street tree. I bought a house in Twelton in 1992 that had the exact same trees planted in front of it, did the exact same thing. The city of Twelton was actually pulling the majority of them out. So in the last 9 years, the trees doubled in size, as seen in that prior photo. We've done a lot of work on the trees. If you look at that picture on the right, you can see there's 2 trees in a row and a nice bench between them. You can see that they're lifting up that whole panel, and we've been grinding that panel to try to, keep the edges at a minimum there. So last September, we hired Sound Urban Forestry. They performed an assessment of all 38 trees. And then page 5 of the assessment recommends that we develop a removal and replacement plan for the trees. Root cutting and sidewalk grinding and replacing, they're all reactive measures, and they're only temporary to the problem. That the trees are going to need to be removed at a certain point, and different trees planted that don't have the root bearing capacity. And then you also put in root shields now too, the PVC root shields, which helps quite a bit. So the arborist report recommends 4 different varieties of replacement trees, and we can look at other varieties too if council's interested that aren't aggressive, and the root barriers will go in like Ed mentioned. And we did a cost estimate internal to take the trees out, to grind the roots out, to put in grates. We'll be able to reuse some of those grates. but you can see the holes are larger that are cut in the grates. The trees are obviously going to be smaller that we put in there. Replace panels. There's also electrical that goes from tree to tree to tree. And obviously plant, put a tree in, guys, stake it, put in a root area. It's about $250,000. And then also what we want to do is make sure that when we're putting trees back, that it meets the 2015 City of Shelton Community Vision and Action Plan, Downtown Revitalization. That's sort of a long title. But anyways, that plan, I went through it cover by cover, and talks about eliminating a lane each way. It talks about other things, which I'll show here on the next slide. So on the street improvement portion of that plan, if you look down the bottom, there is a conceptual sketch that they took in 2015 of the street and then overlaid their vision on it. So there's a new building that went on the left there at 4th and Railroad looking east. Right now it's a parking lot. And you can see that they put in the colored crosswalks. They have a median down the middle. They have the painted left turns. You can see the existing pear trees, the way they were in 2015 on the same photo. That traffic signal doesn't exist either. That was removed. One thing that they don't show, and they show bike lanes, those are those green strips on each side. Wider sidewalks too. You can see that the sidewalks, it appears to be widened more on the north, and then it looks like they left them the same on the south. They didn't really show bump outs as much, and maybe they did. It's hard to tell by this sketch, but the goal was to try to get the pedestrians standing out over by the car when they cross and try to reduce that length. So you can see that guy with the blue shirt in. It's probably a graphic. They dropped the person on the photo, right? But you try to minimize that length if possible. So it's just easier for cars to see you standing there. So the 4-lane was down to 2 lanes, and with a shared left turn lane. They talked about back end angled parking in some areas. That was never put in. And they have some mini circles at each intersection, right in the center. Those are a little problematic, that the fire department has problems sometimes trying to get through and around them. It all depends on if they're drive over, how big they are, what they're made of, that sort of thing. People tend to hit them a little bit. Wider sidewalks for street seating, and then street trees and amenities, some more benches, trash receptacles, bike racks. You can also talk about hanging flower baskets. There's a whole variety of things, awnings on storefronts, so people can walk down the street, and there's a covered awning for a lot of it. We did that in Newburgh, where I'd worked before. There's a grant process for that for businesses. A lot of this would run out of community development, though. Public Works is responsible for the street, the sidewalk, the signs, and the trees, those sorts of things. Some of these other elements that the community development department would be involved with.
And hey, Jay, I
Yes.
believe the back-end parking was installed for a very short period of time before it was taken out because it was unworkable. But council members, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, it was there and then didn't stay long. You were correct.
Yeah.
It was difficult to back into those spots.
Yeah, I would not recommend that. So here is a graphic of the upper photo is in 2015. This is the one that they doctored that photo up. And you can see that there's 2 lanes each way, no left turn pocket in the center. So down on the bottom, that's a picture I took last week. And that has center turn lane, and it has just 1 lane each way, a little wider parking area, that sort of thing. There were, if you look at the bottom bump out, that the curb returns haven't been brought all the way out down there. and they could be extended out a little farther. And you can see there's no median between the left turn lanes either that haven't been put in. Now, I wasn't here at that time. My understanding was the medians, council chose at that time not to put them in because they wanted to make sure we could close the street and make it like a big festival street, and that they like the wide open look of the street rather than putting medians and street trees in, which will break the street up. There was ideas that they wouldn't do that for more of a festival street. Now, I don't know how many times the street is completely closed and it's a free for all out there, you know, parades and parties and vendor booths and all that. But it's something to consider in the future.
I think I would rather have the big sidewalks for outdoor seating than islands. And it would affect our parade if we had islands and trees there.
And also, just a minute. And also, people have come unglued at the center going up Alder, safety wise. So I'm not sure if it would go over. I don't like the trees down the middle.
Not at all. So there is another item to talk about, and that's that street seating application. Community development runs those, and Director Ziegler would be more familiar with those. But that is where you take out parking in front of your business and put in some street seating. So in lieu of widening the sidewalk, you would have seating out in the parking area, and you take up some of the sidewalk also. Manager Knighton might be able to speak to that. I don't know if Railroad, I think it might have to be a side street to Railroad, Manager Knighton, but I could be corrected there.
Yeah, so there are programs in various cities around the state, around the country really, that utilize a concept called parklets, where you take a parallel parking spot and you can turn that into a temporary outdoor seating area. We tried something like that several years ago with the start of the farmers market. And from the feedback we received from those folks, they didn't feel particularly safe or protected while they were operating right there in the parallel parking spots. If we were to move that direction, I would recommend that that not happen on Railroad, but happen on the streets that intersect Railroad, 3rd, 4th, 5th, that type of thing, and allow those activities in those places. Generally have a lot lower traffic flow and lower speeds.
Can we talk about speed for a second? We're on that subject. I walked all downtown this weekend looking at all the trees because we didn't have pictures quite yet. And there was a little white sport car. He must have been doing 60 miles an hour going down Railroad. I couldn't even tell what the brand of the car was. He was going so fast. I mean, so these little mini roundabouts or some kind of speed bumps, yeah. I'd be for that. I mean,
typically the way people react when they drive, the wider the street, the more space you have on to see, the faster you're going to go. Narrower streets tend to slow people down. That's not always the case, of course, but generally that holds true. But we need to look for ways to mitigate that without putting medians in the center of Railroad, because that would impact our parades and other festivals like that.
That's true.
There's a concept called Wohners. It's from Germany, and it's where you put the street seating and the people eating right on the street, and then you put a park right down the middle with the kids' swing sets, and you make it tighter than all get out. And it was popular back, 10, 15 years ago. I don't know if they're still doing it overseas, but basically you're saying that the pedestrians and the people control this downtown. The automobiles are completely second, right? So, and then a log truck goes by, right? So,
yeah, that's the realistic piece here. Is if we did anything with parklets, we'd have to do significant traffic calming, and there's just no way. I love the idea of doing that, which is my question is, do we ever get requests for these types of, from businesses on railroad? Have we been receiving requests for a parklet or that type of solution? Have we been able to accommodate? I know we did for Smoke and Mo's back when they were on the corner there. But I didn't really consider that a parklet actually, but yeah.
The last, we have not, that I'm aware of. The last time that we looked into an opportunity like that was at the start of the COVID pandemic, right after restaurants started to reopen and outdoor seating type of thing. And we offered the opportunity, if there was any interest from the business community along railroad to do that, we would make that easy and make it simple to do. Unfortunately, no one took advantage of that at the time, but it's definitely something we could take a look at. I just want to make sure that the people that are out there, particularly on railroad, would feel safe being there. And that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I don't feel safe crossing railroad.
Right.
So part of the discussion this evening is to talk to you about, with a plan to remove and replace all the downtown street trees as recommended by the arborist. We can do a block by block approach. We can, do one, start with the worst first and sort of move our way through it. Public Works staff can take it on, but it would be something that took years to complete and it wouldn't be cohesive. So you save some money if Public Works went and did that. We could hire someone to do some of them too. But in the end, doing them all at once, all the trees should grow together. They should all be about the same height, especially because we use the trees, with the lights on them, during the Christmas time, and having all the trees about the same size, I think would be important. So that's one thing we want to talk about and then the when would be next, and the what, but maybe we can talk about the first one first.
Yeah, I'm supportive of doing this all as one project. I agree. I don't think it would make much sense to do it piecemeal. That said, I'm not exactly sure. You said it's about $250,000 or so for the entire project, and that's basically everything, or is that just the trees or the demo and the trees and that all inclusive?
Yeah, Councilor Schmidt, a good question. That is just for the removal and replacement of the 38 trees with the grates back in again, and hopefully a 3-inch caliper tree, 4-inch if we can get it in the hole. We found down in Newburgh that if you can get a 3 or 4-inch caliper tree, they cost about $500 a piece instead of $175 for a smaller one, but the tree gets going a lot quicker and it does much better. So we have I'll show you some pictures of the trees in a minute, but I'd recommend trying to get bigger trees. So they are limited though, right? That if we found 38 trees, we would go buy them with this year's budget or something and go stow them away until we can get additional budget to actually fund a contractor to come in and rip into the whole thing. And trees are good. You get them into large pots and we can hold them over for a year. So that would be recommended also. Plus they get a little bigger too. So it sounds like, we move forward, with a plan to do that. The estimate for $250,000 for all of them just was the trees. We would also overlay a plan of what the road diet is now, and then other things that we think council might be interested in. It sounds like you're not interested in medians, but maybe we can look at some pedestrian bump outs of some of the curb returns, maybe some additional tree wells. Mayor Nisco had mentioned the potential of maybe widen a sidewalk in a few areas. Maybe look at where any benches or trash cans are missing, those sorts of items.
I love the widening sidewalk.
Yeah. Regarding the tree species, I mean, I'm not going to be too partial to that. You know, if there's partners, the conservation district or whomever, you know, we can reach out to some folks in the community that would maybe have some more say in that. So like, I don't want to get too wound up over the tree species and get dug into that, but I just don't want to be redoing this in 25 years, I guess. So we just got to be conscious of what we're doing. And I'm also surprised that we didn't realize this in the 90s, that, you know, the roots were going to cause this kind of an issue. It just seems like we need to do this and do it right, and hopefully not be back here in 25 years.
We're not the first city with this problem, Councillor Schmidt. City of Newburgh, exact same thing. Not as many though. City of Tualatin, like I mentioned, a lot of them. So this is not, and I'm sure Manager Knighton's seen this in his career too. So this is not an unusual conversation. It's unfortunate that these pear trees were put in. I don't think people, it was sort of the greatest thing, and people didn't know that their roots love to push things up. So it's an unfortunate lesson.
Yeah, and Railroad and Coda aren't the only streets. I mean, I walked all over town looking at the trees, and up there by the Oakland Bay Junior High, all that sidewalks coming up there on the fence line as well. So, you know, we'll be doing this all over town probably over the next several years. But I'm also all for doing all this all at once and having the trees be the same size. And I do care about species a little bit, but we can talk about that next, I guess.
Yes. So I'll show you some trees in a second, but sort of the next steps would be prepare a concept plan, showing some more road diet stuff, give you guys a menu, you know, show you some things, see what you think, maybe a few more trees, maybe moving some of the trees around, you know, council considers that, look at the cost of the project and funding sources. Then coordinate with the community members. I mean, they're the ones that open their doors every day and, you know, put their signs out and have the people come in and out. So it's important that they have input on what we come up with. And then probably in 2023, show it as one of our street projects for the year, to go on and wrap some of these items up. So the street trees. So you have the hornbeam, the century ginkgo, a tupelo, and a sugarcone maple. And so each tree has sort of different width and height. So the arborist did give us some good varied things. Like the sugarcone maple down at the bottom only gets 25 feet high, 13 feet wide. What I'd recommend though is we would go with taller trees, I would think, that are more columnar, so they stay off the buildings too. But that way they give you a real good streetscape. Something around 40 or 35 feet in height, I think would be nice. And so the three, other than the sugarcone maple, I'd recommend. Another thing, and we're going to talk to an arborist more about this, but we probably want to do one side with one type or one and the other side with others, or do every other on the same side and mix and match a few of these. And the reason is if the disease comes in or an insect comes in and takes the trees out, like the birch boring beetle. I don't know if you guys have heard about that one, but this beetle has gone, all those white birches are gone, and it just takes them out, right? And so 20 years from now, they're not pushing up the walk, but all of them are dead because something went and got them, right? So remember, these are urban trees, so they're stressed a little more, right? It's not like they're growing out in the woods that, you know, they have light and water problems, and then obviously some pollution problems too, because they're on a street, right? So they are a little more susceptible to the diseases, but all these choices though are some of the best ones that are disease and pest resistant.
Yeah, I'd like the ginkgos and the fire starters to alternate. So we'd have a red and a yellow and red and a yellow in the fall.
That's a good choice. So here's the hornbeam. The hornbeam, we have them in, put them in Newburgh. It was sort of our tree of choice because they grow quick and they look just like that. You know, they're not going to get on a building, and you can trim them a little bit. And then they stay just sort of like this big oval shape, but their colors aren't the greatest in the fall. It's yellow and then the leaves drop off, right?
It's an Easter egg.
Yeah, it's an Easter egg. You can see the ginkgo. They do get a little taller. If I recall, it goes up to 45 feet. Good looking tree though. Good shape, and really good fall yellow color. And then the fire starter, that's a beautiful tree. It sort of has a similar shape also to the ginkgo. So they look somewhat similar, but there'll be two completely different colors in the fall, right? And then here's the sugarcone maple. That would be put in on some side streets or areas where it's just limited. There could be some power lines in the way and that sort of thing. And the trees get bigger than this. This is actually the only picture I could find of it. They were smaller, but and they just sort of turn yellow. They don't turn vibrant. You know, it might be an orange yellow too, but they're not as vibrant in the fall, it appears.
Hey, Jay,
Yes.
what about pink dogwoods?
Yeah, we have actually on our master tree list that came from the city of Ridgefield, some dogwoods on there. I could look at them and talk to the arborist and see, I mean, there's certain criteria. We want to make sure it's columnar. We want to make sure it goes to about 40 feet with a 20-foot wide base, and we don't want it root bearing. Then we also want to make sure it can handle urban environments, you know, water, light, that sort of thing. And
Right.
I can check that out. So you said it was the peace dogwood?
Pink dogwood or the
pink
white
dogwood.
dogwood?
The
You know,
pink
and
white.
over at Lake Chelan, in eastern Washington, their town is full of pink dogwoods, and they look really not. I don't know anything about pink dogwoods, but I think that if that was a possibility, that would add some color to our streets.
Great. So that is my presentation this evening. I showed you this picture about
Yeah.
probably 8 months ago, and this is what Railroad Avenue looked like in 1912. And
Yeah, I
one
remember
tree.
that picture.
No, you don't.
we came a long ways, right? So.
Oh.
So I'm open for any further questions on this. Otherwise, I will be working on some things and check back in, and it'll probably take me a couple months. I got to get someone on board to help me with some of the road diet items, come up with a conceptual sketch, double check the tree locations that we have right now. There's some tree locations that have no trees in them too. Mayor, I don't know if you noticed that on your walk. There's some that are blank. There's some that were paved over for one reason or another. They removed the well and put in a blank of concrete. And you look down the street, there's a block that's just missing, right? There are no street trees. And so, I mean, is council's preference to put at least a tree or two every block length and put them back if they're missing right now? Now, the property owners might not like that a whole lot, but I guess that's another question.
I'd say yes.
Talk to them too. Find out. I'm supportive.
I believe Councilmember Peterson has a question.
Well, and kind of to that point, I think consistency is something we ought to be looking at. So as we just finished the downtown connector project and we put in some trees along the pathway going up across from Joe's neighborhood, we're talking about the landscaping now for the parking lot at the Civic Center. It would be nice if we could try to incorporate some of those similar elements throughout. So that, again, I think one of the things we heard loud and clear from the community, the downtown visioning plan, was a sense of place. And so if there's ways that we can try to bring some of those elements throughout, and I know that we worked with the Conservation District on some of those previous projects, we may already have some good information we can fold into this plan.
Good, thank you.
I have a statement. Deidre, did you know that they're pink dogwood along there near Joe's house?
Yes, I don't think they're pink ones, but they're definitely
white. They're dogwood. Yeah, yeah.
They're beautiful.
I was going to ask about irrigation. Oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
please.
Would there be irrigation components to this? Are they irrigated now or no?
No, they're
I
not.
don't think they are.
pretty typical tree isn't irrigated. It takes about 2 to 3 years to establish. First summer is pretty difficult. You bag them, you put those green bags on them, and our guys will have to keep up on the watering of those. Second summer, you can let them dry out a little bit. Third summer, you just watch them for stress.
Got it.
As long as we don't hit 112 again this year.
We can't do that.
Plan on it. Yeah.
And I have gotten some feedback from a resident who lives in the more historic end of town who is concerned about us pulling out the street trees, and I can understand why. This is not the first time we're talking about planting trees along Railroad. And so I think that there is some concern from the community about ripping out all the trees. What is that going to look like? And also, is there a way to incorporate any of the trees that maybe we already have in the historic district or other nearby areas? So again, we're trying to bring some of those elements forward because it will take some time for these trees to catch up in size.
Do you have information on some of these trees on how fast they grow compared to others?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on which variety is selected. And I can get you some more information later about their growth rates. Most of them are medium growth rates, or not super slow growing. I can check more into that though, and get you that information. I got a good indication, what we'd like to see. We need to come up with some drawings, get back to the community, select a couple trees, look at a couple alternatives also. And I can get you a bunch more information about each specific tree.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deidre brought up a good point with some of the opposition to this project. I just want to make sure it's also pretty clear to us all. There's not just the infrastructure damage component. There's the tort claim and liability aspect of this, and the slip, trip, and fall and injury is going to be city responsibility if we don't, manage this appropriately. We don't really have any other solutions, that are, I would say, not as cost effective, even though it's a $250,000 project. It's just kind of a difficult one, but we got to do it.
Well, and beyond the cost of the claims, God forbid someone gets hurt. I mean, none of us want to see that either. And I see it every day downtown with folks, talking with folks, or worrying about their bags, and then they hit the lip of something. And I mean, I've caught people before doing that. So it is something to look at. And I don't know if we have to have the concrete quite as close to trees as we do. It seems like in some of the older neighborhoods, we have some more open space, green space, which gives us a little more room before we get to the infrastructure. But I'm sure that that's something that engineering can work through with all of their experts.
Commissioner McDowell or Councilmember McDowell?
Old days, Eric.
Yes.
I love, as you will hear me say, I love the pink dogwoods. And the thing with the dogwoods is that you can trim them up so that they go out instead of up. So you may not need as many on the sidewalks along the streets if they go out, but that's just a thought.
So one thing I wanted to mention is the My Civic app. It's available for download at your favorite store, the iPhone store or the Android store. If you guys are walking downtown and you see a sidewalk that's lifted a little bit, please get a hold of it. It'll go to Public Works, and we'll schedule them and get the sidewalks ground. Our goal is to keep it safe. Our guys are out there a lot looking at it, but we need your eyes and ears also, right?
And the other thing I like, as far as aesthetics are concerned, one of the things I like is instead of the grates, we have ground cover vegetation around the base of the tree. Flowering adds a little bit more color along the sidewalk, makes it a little more inviting. But we can take a look at all of those options and bring those back to council now that we have a little bit better direction of where council would like to go, and see if what we put together meets your expectations or needs a little bit more tweaking. And then absolutely share that with the community, and especially the business owners along the frontage of where we're planning to do this work, and make sure we get majority support for the direction we're going to go. As Jay mentioned, looking through this and kind of formulating the plan through this year, and then potentially adding that as a project for the city to complete in 2023 is kind of what we're aiming at now.
Sounds good to me. Councilmember Sherman?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions real fast. So you said that we could buy the trees and store them until they're ready to be planted?
Yes. What our concern would be is if we put it out to bid for a contractor and said, here's the trees, go buy them now, and then all of a sudden they're not available, then all of a sudden we have a project we can't do, or we're scrambling to substitute trees that we went through a big process, right? So we want to make sure they're available. We want to put some of them on hold, do some checking with the community and council and get everyone to nod as much as we can, yes. And then procure the trees, hold them, and wait for a final design and the contractor and all of that is sort of the thinking, because we're worried about someone buying a bunch of them and all of a sudden you don't have enough. Right. So,
well, where do you store them?
Yeah, great question. Probably down either the wastewater plant or in the back of the maintenance yard. There's some area back there, but 38 trees are going to take up some room. So probably down at the main plant, we'll store them and get them in chip piles of chips with some sprinklers going on them.
So do you buy backup trees in case a tree gets damaged, somebody runs into a tree or it dies? Do you buy more than the exact 38?
Typically, we don't. I mean, with my past experience, I haven't, but it might be recommended, especially for the first few years, is just have a couple on standby over there. I appreciate that comment. That's being proactive, because again, the tree might not be available a couple of years later, and if it didn't make it through the establishment period, that'd be a problem.
Yeah. So it'd be probably in your benefit to buy, if you needed 38, to buy 45 or so in case something happened. Yeah. That's all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Jay or Jeff?
Just
Councilmember Gutierrez?
Yes, my question was about after we harvest these trees, are they just going to get thrown away, or can we recycle them? Is pear wood good for anything? Smoking, barbecue, or something? I don't know.
Great question. So the contractor's bid, typically it works that they remove the trees and we don't have them. That's typically how we do most of these bids. If there is a community wood cutting group, the town I came from, the Catholic men had a wood cutting club. And so we would take stuff like this to them, and then they would make firewood for the community. If things like that exist in our community, we can definitely have them delivered somewhere.
The other thing we were looking at is to allow, if any community member wanted the tree, they could come down and pick it up, assuming we're able to take it out where it's viable, and or look at opportunities to reuse those trees in our parks if possible. Those are all things to be worked out as we get closer to the bidding process and what the contractor has to say.
It's very likely the trees could be coming down in pieces because they're near buildings, and that makes everyone nervous. And so it's very likely there's going to be a lot of firewood when they're done.
Councilmember Peter, you had a question? I know she had her hand up before you had your hand up.
Okay.
You're good?
Me?
Deidre.
Go ahead.
Okay. McDowell.
Thank you.
Okay. Is this wood usable for wood carvings?
Yes, I would say the wood would be used for wood carving. There's going to be a lot of it, right?
Right.
The trees are small, that they're not much good, for tabletops and benches and that sort of thing, because they're not like bigger maples and that sort of stuff. The diameters aren't big enough yet. But for smaller projects such as cutting boards and small wood shops and that sort of thing, that we definitely can have some made available to the community. We did that at my former job again, and nobody ever came to pick any of it up. It sat there for a year, and we ended up hauling it off, unfortunately. So it was well-made plans, but nobody took advantage of it.
How about wood carvings for things around town?
Yeah, that's good. If there's community groups that would want to get involved, we can surely make it available for that.
Okay. I am really sad to think that you would just cut it up for firewood. You know, we want to carry on the life of these trees, and if we could get a wood carver, if we could get like some of the service organizations, Kiwanis, Rotary, Lions Club, that would provide a wood carver and do some sort of wood carving and have them planted, have them put around town someplace.
What I think would be amazing is if during the art displays that we have in the Civic Center, any artists that are able to do that. I'm certainly not. I couldn't do a cutting board, but I'm sure there are people out there that are fully capable of doing something like that. And if they'd be interested in displaying their art used with local trees, that'd be great.
Yep.
And we can certainly make it available for people that are interested in doing that.
Hey, Jay, are trees that are pulled out, can they be replanted in our parks?
Yeah, so there are tree spades that can come in and move trees. Unfortunately, to do that, you would have to rip out curbs, sidewalks, street to get all the spade in there big enough. These trees are right at the diameter where it's getting a little iffy. 8-inch diameter, 12-inch diameter, some of the bigger ones that these spades can come in and move for you. It's expensive. I had a project, it was $8,000 a tree for moving from like a field to another field. This is a completely different thing. These would not be candidates just because of all the paving and such around them. And then the sheer location being right next to buildings. Anyways, I would highly recommend against that.
In our Tree City recognition, do we have to, is there a certain rule we have to plant more than we take out, or?
Yeah, there are, from the Arbor Day Foundation, there are rules that we'll need to follow, and we'll certainly follow them as part of this project to maintain our Tree City USA status.
Perfect. All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Jay or our city manager?
Well, I just have a comment. One comment. Let's be real careful and real gentle with what we do with the trees, and not just cut them up for firewood. See what we can do to save some, artwork for the city.
All right. So does the council have any other items for discussion tonight?
I got one.
Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Bode.
That was not me.
Oh, who said that?
It was me.
Oh, Joe.
Sorry about that.
Mayor, go ahead. I'm
All
sorry.
right. Sorry, Jim. The presentation was very well done. Thank you, Jay. It started off with the downtown visioning plan. It kind of made me think, and I ran this by Jeff earlier. I believe that was a 2015. We did that. The city did that in 2015, 2016 timeframe. Is that correct? So it's been a little while now.
2016.
It'd be probably 2016. So yeah, I was thinking it'd be good for us to consider, 2023, 24, whatever, updating that. I don't, looking at kind of a refresh of that plan and just making sure that, because we completed a few things on there now, and there it is. There it is. But I think it's, good bones, and probably time to take a look at it and make some updates and bring the group back together, get the band back together on that one. Looked like a really cool project, and I just want us to consider that in the next couple of years.
Well, we
I
are
agree with that.
Yeah.
One thing that's coming to fruition from the downtown visioning is the basketball court.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Harris.
Yes, I just wanted to talk about the future planning of like trails and everything that are going to go to downtown. Like, what's our vision with that? Just keep that in mind. And also, I just wanted to say that the charrette idea was great, having everyone work together, and it's a big group project. It's kind of like our city council, right? So we can all get together and do something like that with the public, I think that would be fun. So I'm just backing what Council Member or Deputy Mayor Schmidt said about getting the band back together and look at the planning, because it's been 7 years ago since we've looked at that. And, you know, we're not chasing Pokemons anymore, you know, like we were back in 2016. I don't know. So anyway, something to keep in mind that we can think about all the other things that are involved.
Great. Any other discussion tonight?
Nope.
Nope. The study session is adjourned at 6:45 PM.
Recording